The agenda this week debated paid sick day policy in this province and checked on the health of the family farm in Ontario. The agenda's week in review begins analyzing energy pricing since the last election and before. We do remember under the previous Liberal government when energy prices were going through the roof and MPPs' phones were ringing off the hook. The line was, we're facing a choice, some people, between heating and eating. It was desperate for a while. Premier Kathleen Wynne intervened in an attempt to get energy prices down. Whatever you want to say about that decision, it obviously didn't go very well. The results of the last election speak for themselves. Enter Doug Ford, who said, I'm going to reduce electricity prices a further 12% from where they are right now. Question one, how well has this government done in fulfilling that campaign promise? Start us off.
Well, first of all, it was an irresponsible promise. I mean, and they haven't delivered on it. As a matter of fact, electricity prices have gone up. They went up last November. And I think it's going to be very difficult for the Ford government to meet that promise, primarily because the previous Liberal government had instituted a 25% reduction, and we're now the only jurisdiction in North America that directly subsidizes electricity prices. It costs $5.6 billion a year. That's $5.6 billion that could go to education or healthcare or a whole bunch of other programs that represent.
Let me jump in and make sure everybody understands what you're saying there. The taxpayers of Ontario are subsidizing the electricity prices that ratepayers pay to the tune of $5.6 billion a year.
That's right. And if you think about it, we have a provincial deficit of $7.4 billion a year, so it's well over half of the provincial budget deficit can be attributed to being the only jurisdiction in North America to directly subsidize electricity prices. So to do a further 12% rate cut, I don't know how the government's going to even begin to fulfill that promise. And again, that's money that could be spent on other programs or deficit reduction.
Charles Kaiser, how well are they doing at making that promise come true?
Well, I mean, so far what they've done is they've adopted the policy in the past with respect to subsidization by moving it from a separate financing vehicle to, the public debt, and they've stabilized prices to inflation. And though rates did go up in November.
I'm going to jump in there. You got to English, please.
Well, I mean, ultimately, there was a policy by the Wynne government to basically finance the subsidization of electricity rates. The auditor, was concerned about the way in which it was done, and therefore...
So she did the borrowing on the backs of
and so it was
OPG.
Moved to the public debt. So that's where we are today. The government has still yet to release anything with respect to its 12% reduction in any significant way. But the thing I would actually point, though, is this is a very complex and dynamic system with a number of levers that if you pull, it'll cause a knock-on effect throughout the system. And we've seen over the last 20 years with respect to electricity in particular, a number of policy shifts and changes which have had, far-reaching effects. So I guess in one way of looking at it in a more positive light is, even though major policy announcements haven't happened, it's better for a government to take the time to figure out what to do if it actually is going to bring about those reductions than it is to go through another policy shifts that once again will have further knock-on effects. And I think that's been one of the problems that we faced in the province, is that there's been so many policy shifts over time without necessarily, full planning and otherwise, that we really are living with the residual effect of that. And so the question is now, given we have that residual effect, what is the best way to do it? So to the extent that they haven't done anything, well, I understand that that's a dilemma for people who have to pay their bills and other things, and where resources get allocated. But it's also good to make sure that when you do policy, you've thought about that policy in a meaningful way, particularly given the past history we've had with energy.
Okay. Jean Cumming, your view on this.
So it's interesting about the subsidization. One specific announcement that the Ford government has made is that they're going to show the subsidy now on your hydro bill. So that's at least going to be a marker there. But what I found interesting about this is not only did they say 12%, because it is easy enough in a complex scenario to say 12% and not say 12% of what. But they even gave the dollar amount. So it's $170 some dollars. So how they're going to do that, I guess I would say, if you're going to reduce it by 12%, where are you putting that? Where are you putting that? And I don't mean that in a sinister way of them taking it off the table as much as there are so many ways to account for this. And remember, the Provincial Auditor General did wrap the knuckles of the previous government for their not showing their work in terms of mathematics. So I think that's really the issue of where did $170 even come from?
Can I ask you, Mike Schreiner, one of the things you said in that first answer was that you thought it was an ill-advised promise to make in the first place. And that may come as news to many people watching this or listening to this right now who think the notion of lower electricity prices is a great idea and a great promise to make. So why is it ill-advised?
Because they're not going to be able to keep the promise unless they increase borrowing and deficit finance it. And so they have another promise that they want to lower taxes, they want to address the budget deficit, and they want to somehow magically bring down electricity prices. And Charles, you're right, they haven't made any major policy announcements. They've actually made some announcements, I would argue, that compound the problem. One, they canceled renewable energy contracts at a cost of at least $231 million.
But they said to save $800 million almost.
Well, we'll see. And given the most recent cancellation of a project near Ottawa that was already built, those costs could escalate. So that's a challenge. They've canceled a number of conservation programs. Our lowest cost solution is actually energy efficiency and conservation, helping homeowners save money by saving energy. So they've actually made some policy announcements that I would argue actually contradict their ability or make it even harder for them to achieve their 12% reduction.
Was it an ill-advised promise in the first place, Charles?
I don't necessarily know if it was an ill-advised promise. I mean, I think that, sometimes people underestimate the nature of the electricity industry in Ontario, and it is more complex, and it's gotten more complex over the last number of years. But on the conservation issue, I mean, for example, one of the biggest challenges facing Ontario is its load or its consumption has actually been stabilizing or declining over time. And the issue we have is we have costs that are locked into the system. So, we have this lump of cost. And so if we actually start to reduce consumption, it means on a per kilowatt hour basis, for example, rates will have to go up.
If the law now requires that you're supposed to ask your employee for a doctor's note in order to have that day off, what do you think about the burden of
It's what I just said about the cooperation between the employer and the employee. I don't need a doctor's note to know that that person is sick. They call me on the phone, I can tell they're sick, right? But if you have the situation where a government uses two days off as virtual vacation days that everybody took, by the way, when that was it legislated, by the time the Super Bowl happened, everybody took those 2 days. Particularly right after the Super Bowl. And they were vacation days. They didn't have to prove they were sick. Let's just take the 2 days off. Now, does 2 days really make a difference? If you're sick, you're not sick for 2 days. If you have the flu or something, you're out for a week, 2 weeks, or excuse me, worse.
I have to say, as someone who's working in the emergency department, the first thing is on the sick notes piece. I mean, you said it yourself. When the employee calls to tell you that they're sick, they're sick. You don't need that note. So
but I don't need the government to tell me.
Why is the government then forcing people to go to waiting rooms, to go to doctor's offices, to go to the emergency department, just to get a note that says they're sick?
You don't want to ask for him, and he doesn't want to ask for him either.
No, the reason that people are going to go to work instead of getting a sick note is, so you have to pay for transit or parking, then you have to sit in a waiting room for several hours. You could potentially infect other people. Then you see the doctor, then you got to get home. Well, now you spent hours of your day, instead of resting, you've lost income. It's cost you money. You might have had to pay for the note. You may as well just go to work, which is bad for everyone.
But the point is, if the government isn't forcing those 2 sick days on the employer, there's no need for a note. If an employee comes to you and says they're sick, you're not going to. It's a cooperation between the government has to let us manage our own businesses and our own employees. We value our employees. They're like family to us.
Yes.
So we're concerned about their health. We're concerned about their time off and their compensation. We have to retain these employees, otherwise they'll go somewhere else.
Sarah,
And that's exactly what we're hoping that a lot of companies will actually take a view and a stance on this, is looking at employees as part of the business and the family, and you take care of your business, you take care of your family in order to drive it forward from a business sense. And when there's something not right, then we're hoping that employers would look at it to say, go and rest, and not to the expense of you or your family that you're getting, taking a moment to get better, but that you're going to go and get refreshed and then come back to the workplace. So when looking at that, that is actually part of the strategy. And when companies do have a health and wellness focus, then this is one of those actionables that can demonstrate that they are living their commitment, which is allowing people to have those 2 days or X amount of days to actually get better.
Ryan, you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a point, and I know this is a very touchy subject. The Internal Standards and Employment Standards Act doesn't actually require that an employer demand a medical note. It's an option. And it doesn't force employees to take sick days if they don't need them. The reality is that people will use them over the course of a year, or they'll attempt to use them over the course of the year for various reasons. They're sick, but under the previous Bill 148 wording, you had those additional days, which were personal days, and we all know, and I'm not saying every employee is not worthy of trust, but there are instances where people have personal days.
There's some fudging going on, is what you're trying
It
to say
will
nicely.
happen. My friend mentioned a moment ago, days like the Super Bowl, long weekends come, you start to see absences creep in on the Friday, the Monday to bookend the weekend. And I'm not opposed to having sick days provided for under legislation, but I do agree with there being some level of accountability within your workforce.
I have robots and things like that on my farm that I can run and I can operate, but don't ask me to fix them. So we need the support services, the careers that will support me as a farm business. So there's opportunity in rural Ontario to be part of the agri-food industry without actually hands-on the farm. And we need to be promoting those kinds of things too. And to go where Maggie was, farming is sexy again. Technology certainly made a big impact on that. So I've always been optimistic about agriculture. It's the best job in the world, whether you're on the farm or related to the agri-food industry. And I think the more we get that message out, the more people realize that there's great opportunities.
Keith, I don't want to sound like a city snob here, but when you say it's sexy again, was it ever sexy once before?
In my eyes, it's always been sexy.
Okay, fair enough. I want to, how do I put this so that I don't, again, sound like a jerk here? Okay, I hear farmers all the time talking about how the weather is never good enough, about how the interest rates are always too high, they always owe the bank too much money, it's always too hard to get people who are prepared to put in an honest day's work for an honest day's wage. I hear a lot from the agri-food sector about, the negative side of this occupation. Am I only hearing, Crystal, one side of the story here?
I think it's human nature to complain about the weather, particularly in Canada. So let's put that on the table. I think our sector is our own worst enemy sometimes, of being a little too negative and focusing on the positive and forgetting about the reason why, with heart, that people choose to farm. And I see that tide turning, to see people are standing up to say, no, this is a good place to raise our kids. We are feeding our country. What can be more valuable than that? With pride.
Are farmers complaining too much?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, maybe to their own children. No, they have to approach their own farm in their own way. So you can approach something negatively or you can approach it positively, Steve, and the successful farmers approach their business positively.
Okay. I want to find out why. I mean, obviously nowadays, given the economics, many people choose a different way to go. And Keith, I'm going to infer that at some point along the way, you've been made a sweet offer for your place because who knows what, the land is worth more putting condos on it or developing it for tourism in some other fashion. And yet to this juncture, I guess, you haven't sold out. You're still farming. How come?
Well, it's what I love. From the time I could think, all I wanted to ever do was farm. And so I may get to a point in time in the not so distant future when there's no one going to take over this farm or want to take over this farm, or nobody want to buy it for farming operation, where I have to consider an alternative. But, I represent a membership that is about growing food, is about growing fuel, fiber, and energy products on our ground. And once it's gone, it's gone. So we need to be responsible in how we grow. We need to be responsible, in how we treat the agricultural industry. But each individual farmer is going to make up their own mind on what their decision is.
And that's just some of what we covered this week on the agenda. For more, including the full versions of those conversations, you can always visit our website. That's tvo.org. our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, or our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.